guys haven't signed in, please be sure.
It is now 2:00. I'd like to call the PPAC meeting order. And first thing we have to do, let's take a pledge to the flag. How you doing? All right, I'd like to take a roll call vote.
Please make sure your microphones are on and facing.
Alan here. Domizi here.
John Grega here.
Peggy Hall here.
Sharon Cordy here.
All right, and because Peggy is attending virtually, someone will need to make a motion a second, and you need to vote to allow her to participate virtually due to extenuating circumstances, some legal thing that Tony says.
We need a motion for allowing Peggy to vote.
To participate in the meeting
No,
virtually
she's participating. Anybody can
and
participate.
as a member of the
We
committee.
just have to
Yep.
have her have a
Right.
motion to vote. Because if we decide, I mean, and that's happened in certain meetings.
Sure. But that does give her the permission. She's participating as a member of the committee virtually.
Correct, and that's what,
And it allows her to vote.
right.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
Aye. Aye.
You have to call.
Aye.
You could just call. Aye.
Motion is passed. Peggy, you're not allowed to vote.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda, any public comments?
I have two people who signed up for public comment. First is Carol Panka about the monuments at Tree Line and Colonial. You know the drill.
I do. Carol Pancaw, Avila resident and a member of the GSCDD. Last month, for a number of months, I've brought to you the subject of the monuments at the intersection of Colonial and Tree Line. And as it last stood, we were going to bond counsel, the attorneys at bond counsel, to see if that property could be sold. The answer came back, no, because there is still $1,750,000 remaining on the bond, of which that property was acquired by the GSCDD. Those bonds will not be paid off for 10 years. They will be paid off in 33. I'm sorry, 33. So we have 10 more years to go. However, the bond counsel also said that the next time that GSCDD goes out for a bond issue, it's possible that the bond issue could be framed so that that property would be included in it. In other words, through a new bond issue, you would pay off the old bonds. Oh, it's almost like refinancing a house. When you refinance it, you pay off the old mortgage and you take out a new mortgage on it. And so right now, the GSCDD is actually in the process of doing a bond issue. And in fact, I think it was maybe Monday that the bonds were actually sold. So we're too late for this one. However, if you go back historically, the GSCDD has traditionally every 3 to 4 years looked to put together another bond issue. So the next time we come up to a bond issue, and since I'm new to that board and I've got a 4-year term, I'll still be there. We will see if we can't get these properties included in that bond issue and then be able to go out and sell them. So, for right now, the answer is no, we can't sell anything. They just have to be maintained. And in the future, however, there is a path whereby the answer could be yes. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention so that you all know. Thank you. Yes. Yes. If we were able to sell it today, the property would go to pay off the bonds, or the money would go to pay off the bonds, and then you would have a shorter bond issue. However, you cannot pay off part of the bonds, you have to pay off the entire bond issue. You can't just pay off 3/4 of it and then be able to sell it. With 1,750,000 remaining on that bond issue, it's highly, it probably, we would not be able to sell it for and get more than $1,750,000. So we just have to maintain it the way it is right now. It's going to have to sit there for a period of time.
People are assessed. There is a part of their assessment is for paying off the bonds.
Right,
So if the bond were paid off, that assessment would go away so that we would save money that way, Randy, if that's really what your question is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Carol, but the 1,750,000 is more than just this property, right?
correct.
Yeah.
But it's all
It's a
considered one.
piece, yeah,
When you sell a bond issue, it's all one.
right.
Okay.
Do we have an amount that what we think it's worth? Do we have any idea?
I have only spoken, well, I spoke to two commercial realtors. The property is approximately half an acre on each side, so approximately an acre total. And only one of them would give me any kind of an estimate, and he estimated 500,000 for each property on each side, depending on who buys it and what they're going to use it for. And don't forget, there's no ingress and egress on that property. You'd have to use the shopping centers as access to get to it. It has some fallbacks to it. But the one commercial realtor that I did talk to said that intersection and this whole area, basically from 75 out to 82 here, is becoming a very hot commercial area. And there's expansion of homes and everything further north there on the other side. So I think it'll continue to be viable for a period of time. And of course, who knows about markets? I can't predict. I'm not a realtor. But I just wanted to bring everybody up to speed. Thank you.
Any other public
I have
comments?
one more that signed up. That would be Joe Schofield.
Joe Schofield, Karina, mine's nothing like that. I just had a comment. When I was coming out of the community today, I saw the patrol car parked in the exit side of our exit and entrance next to the guardhouse. And there was a lot of whole traffic when I was coming down there, and both lanes could have been used, but because the patrol cars parked in that exit, and it's frequently there, I just would make a point of it and say, can you have them park someplace else so that gate is accessible to residents? Thank you.
I don't have anyone else who signed up for public comments, and there is nothing in the chat.
We have somebody coming to the microphone.
It's on the agenda. I think, oh, you have to walk it up and remember it. Sorry, he is a walk-on. He just wanted to know when he needed to bring it up. It'll be later.
Let's move on. The next is the approval of our minutes. Any amendments to the February 9th minutes? Anybody have any comments?
I think they did a pretty good job on them.
Yeah, the minutes are excellent, and I have to admit that too.
Yep.
Let's take a vote.
We need a
I'm,
motion in a second.
I move that we accept the minutes, for the February 9th meeting as written.
Vote.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'll abstain.
Aye. Right?
And how about, did you get Peggy?
Oh,
I said
Peggy.
aye.
I
Yes,
heard her.
Aye.
Okay, I
She
heard
did.
her.
Sorry, I didn't hear you, Peggy, sorry.
that's all right.
All right, let me pull this, didn't open. That's fine. Oh. Okay,
Financial report.
yes, I have been working diligently with Jen and her staff to comb through the mess that is the replenishment requests for your stuff that we used to get on a bi-monthly basis. We have completed our review of the October, November, and December replenishment requests. I proactively have already sent these off to Infomark because you guys are down to $7,000 in your account because this hasn't been replenished since September. So there is $49,777.50 that will be sent over to replenish your funds so you can continue to pay your bills. Unless anyone has any objections to what was attached, I went through each invoice, looked at it, made sure it was ours, made sure that the item had cleared the bank account before I approved them. So everything that was on here has actually been paid through your account.
Under the current setup, will we be having to do this every month? I mean, it used to be that this was not done by the entire committee.
Correct. I'm still gonna go through and approve them all. I mean, if you would like, I will just automatically approve these and bring these forward as an FYI, if that's okay with you. Cause it's the same, I go through the same exercise either way. So I will still continue to attach them to your agendas, but it'll be a more of a, this is what was submitted, this is what I approved, and here's what you guys paid for. So it's in the spirit of transparency, so you can see, I don't think that the entire committee has ever been privy to what is actually being paid on your behalf
That's
before
right.
now. So you will be going forward. So I'm more than happy to just to review these and push them through as I get them and then attach them as an FYI. This is what was paid and what you were reimbursed for whichever period. That it's your money. I just want to make sure that if you guys are okay with doing it, which is the way we were doing it before, I am very comfortable doing it that way. My part of it doesn't change. It's just the only part for me that changes is when I actually sign off and say, okay, send the money. So if
I-
you're okay with me doing it when I get it and review it and just do the wire and bring it to you after the fact, I can certainly do that. If you'd like to see them first and vote on it, I can do that. I'll leave it up to you.
I would suggest that we get the consensus of the committee, and my feeling is that we should let Laura go ahead and pay them and just inform us.
I mean, that's my opinion too. You've been doing that all this time anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
These are strictly what POs that have been issued by the district.
no, these are for things that Castle formerly paid for you and now KW is taking care of on your behalf. So these are the expenses that are reimbursed through the O and M
So
agreement.
that's why they needed monitored,
Correct.
because they have.
If they come to us for approval, does that cause delay in payment? Big time, probably. And that can hurt the person that needs paid. I definitely think it should be done the same way, because if we have to approve it, the poor vendor or whoever's getting paid.
No,
It'd
there's
be
still,
like-
no, the bills are being paid. This is just to reimburse your checking account.
It's supposed to be an invoice.
Right.
$10,000.
Right. We're way behind because of the replenishment requests were lost in the
Yeah.
ethos somewhere.
and
So
we increased the last time
to 90,000.
we
Right.
increased it to 90,000 when we modified the O and M agreement, because they needed that kind of flexibility. So it seems to me it makes sense to give them the flexibility.
Right.
Because there are months when we don't meet sometimes or something of that sort. So I would think that the consensus of the committee should be that we would allow Laura to go ahead and make the replenishment without specifically getting the approval of. the
So do
committee.
my same review like I have been doing and just bring it to you as a part of my financial summary each month.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
If you are all
We
okay
need a
with that,
vote, or it's just, we all agree?
are you in consensus? I mean, does anyone
Yeah.
object? No.
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 Okay, I'll continue to do it that way then going forward. And I know we have some to go over, so for January, so I'll get that cranked out right away.
Anything else regarding the financial?
I think that was all I had in there, just the replenishment request.
Well,
I'm starting to
Jim-
do work on the budget templates at this point, so, and I know we have a 1 o'clock meeting. We're starting the meeting at 1 o'clock at the April meeting to go over budget numbers. So, Georgia has that on her calendar. I verified that she has that time changed for next month, so you'll get that reminder that we're gonna start early next month.
Will there
Yeah.
be, in the future, will there be a more information, more financial
Yes,
information?
The,
I mean, Alan used to provide, where we are versus our budget and what our balance sheet looks like.
yes.
Is this information that?
I
that will
get
be
them,
provided?
I get the financials the day of your meeting.
Oh,
We got them this morning. So yeah, I will send them out after I have a chance to look them over. I'll email you guys so that you have it, but we get them the second Thursday of the month in the morning, which is the same day you guys meet. And I was tied up this morning and didn't have a chance to put something together to hand out, but I will send something out tomorrow for you guys. I'll summarize them and send you a recap of the district's, portion of the financials.
Any other comments?
And I think, Jen,
Jim.
you're gonna present something on as far as, do you have like a kind of like where they're at for budget stuff yet? Or are we not to that point yet? Yeah, I think she's working on it. We have a meeting next week. We've been trying to get together for like 2 weeks to go over formatting and sort it all out. Yeah, tomorrow it is, yeah.
I do have some questions for Jen though, if she's here.
Jen's here.
You were, I think, given an assignment to get some bids or something for Matarita. Last meeting, we talked about it, and I think it went to you, so.
Yes.
Do
We
you
sent it-
have those?
Yep, Jen Lewis, KW. I do have some proposals. So we were asked for Moderita. I forwarded them off to Keith and Chelsea and Laura already. So we did get, I reached out to 8 vendors and it's a specialized, uh, item that can be done because the, concrete was not something that a lot of paving companies will do. So I've reached out to 8 paver companies, but only Rock Solid Pavers and Timo Brothers could could bid on it. So we won't have 3 proposals. We'll just have the 2. So, Rock Solid Pavers came in to do the pavers at Moderita 2, for a total of $20,450. And Timo Brothers, I just handed you my copy. You needed an extra copy. And Timo Brothers came in at $22,747.50 to do that. I think the Casella was in the $18,000 range, if I recall. So we might have to have them sharpen their pencils on this one because I think the square footage is the same, so. And then we also need to add Roman numeral 2 to the main monument as well as the circle at the Casella Circle. So we're working with Foresight mailboxes and signs out of Sarasota on those. We did get a proposal back. It was very reasonable. With tax, it was $123.80. And we just need to find someone that can epoxy those to the signs.
So it's something that we should delay the approval, I gather, you're saying?
Do you need approval now, or
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know what the process is. I just sent these like hours ago to Keith, Chelsea and Laura.
I got mine at 125.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright.
So I got them in hot off the press.
Mr. Geppert has some comments?
Thanks, Jim.
Bob Geppert, Monticello. Since the last time this was brought up for discussion, and I've had conversations with Matarita too. We don't agree on it, but it's whatever. It's an item that is up for discussion. What I want to point out to you is there may or may not have been a mistake for this group to put it in Casella, but you did. The question I guess I'm throwing out right now is that everybody with full understanding knows that we do not have these papers for Viadana, community of longstanding. We do not have them for Palazzo. We do not have them for Trentino Estates. I mean, there's a number of communities that don't have them. So when and if this gets approved, look down the road because everybody else is going to come up and raise their hand. Well, they may not. But you also got a situation with Casella that's got Casella 1, Casella 2, Casella 3, Casella 4. The case could be made, you're treating everybody else the same and that they would have it too. And then there is some discussion about when Matarita was designed and built, the pavers were not in there. Everybody that bought homes in there, and for the last 5 years, they've done without pavers. If, in my own humble opinion, if this is something that should go forward, I think it ought to go forward jointly between PPAC and the community or communities. Because you ought to set a precedent then, okay, this is not a big deal. For the cost of a meal, $100 per homeowner within this group, that's half the cost. So if the neighborhood wants it sincerely enough to pay half the cost, then I think you ought to consider paying the other half. But just to be writing checks because they said they got it, I want it too. So that's my nickel's worth. Thank you.
I have to agree a lot with Bob in certain cases, and you made the comment, if they wanted the pavers, one of the communities, and I think I discussed that with you, that if you divided it by all your homeowners, I think it was less than $100. Is that correct? I mean, if the homeowners really wanted it for less than $100, they may want to pay for it.
I think from, Jack Pierce or Matarita too. I think from our standpoint, everyone
Speaking
else,
to the mic,
from our standpoint, everyone on the 4-lane common roads have them. They did not have to pay for. And I mean, we look at our tax bill, what goes in for Gateway, and it's like, why does everyone else have them but us? So I think it's kind of an issue with fairness.
I think what Bob mentioned, though, it's not just you, it's a lot of others. And we'd be looking at a lot more money.
I think that's,
I mean, if you look at each homeowner at less than $100, I think it was 80 some dollars when we did the calculation. Versus if every one of the communities that Bob mentioned end up wanting it, we're setting a precedent.
what I'm asking for is to be treated like everyone else on the 4-lane common roads. All those other ones are embedded in communities, or they're on a 2-lane road with a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit. And they're different than us. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a totally separate issue. And I mean, you go in like the one community where Ravine is in, they have pavers, monuments all over the place beyond Pelican Preserve Boulevard. And there's really no reason why that was done. Bob suggested they were one of the first communities, so the builder spent more money on doing that sort of stuff. But that's never been done again. That's very unique.
Can I make a suggestion? This was on the agenda last month. It's not on the agenda this month. We're aware that this is going on. We're in the process of accumulating, compiling, summarizing all of the quotes. I would like to table this for your next meeting, so we have some information to bring back and have intelligent conversations about.
But might I add, the reason it's not on the agenda today is because somebody stopped it from CDD. And we wanted to talk about it because we knew there was going to be quotes that came through or bids that came through.
But we would not have.
That's why it's not on the agenda today.
Yes, that's what I said. We didn't have the stuff in time to put it on the agenda. We
Well,
just got them today, which is
no,
not the week ahead
No,
of time.
no, not true.
So-
They got them, but, what's the date on the, bids?
They're
Yeah,
today.
there's Chemo Brothers, but there was another one that came through. well
We
before
only had
this.
one and that's not enough. We need to have it, we would like to have at least three. So that's why it's not on the agenda. We didn't have enough information to have a conversation about what the cost would be if you could decide to pursue it. So I requested that it be moved to the April meeting.
I got a question for Jen. For example, on the pavers, do you think we'll ever get any more quotes? In my understanding, when, Casella happened, they only had one quote from Timo Brothers.
We had more than one. We reached out. If we reach out to more vendors and they decide not to return the bid, that's fine. But again, we just got stuff back today, which is not enough time to get it on the agenda. It needs to be published a week ahead of time.
I understand that, but Still-
We're aware of the issue. We're just asking that you give us some time to put it together so we can make a presentation for what it would cost should they decide to move forward, which we are not prepared to discuss at this meeting.
well, I think you have all the information now, but it's not my decision.
Is this providing anything except a cosmetic improvement? Is there anything to safety of the road that this will add to? Or is it just strictly cosmetics?
You actually set it off. I think, keep it up.
It's, part safety. That won't answer, or that won't take care of the whole problem, but has anyone been out there to the entrance from Migliera to Prado? So if you're coming out of Migliera and you're looking for the ongoing traffic from the left, you can't see it unless you actually pull out in the crossway. And someone could be on top of you by then. I think the pavers would help that, to get people's attention and slow them down.
Jack, I was at intersection at stoplight, took a picture
Mhm.
and, I don't think pavers that have anything at all to do
No,
with
I
your
agree.
visibility. That is a very
Well-
large berm that's there and I would be very reluctant to take on any homeowners in terms of trying to cut that down as far as visibility. It protects their area. Now, having said that, Bob makes a point about setting a precedent. But I fully endorsed Casella getting that because they made every effort they could from Lennar to get what they thought was supposed to be a part of their community, their neighborhood. I also agree with you that you've already prepaid for that. I'm a member of Matarita too as well.
Mhm.
I go through a different entrance, but we've got, there's two different things to think about here. So do we set a precedent? Yes, we do. Is it fair that the whole community pay for equitable treatment in their areas? I happen to believe it is. So.
Yep, Randy,
Said that,
thank you. Regarding your comment on the safety thing, we got a big problem with the berm. You know that.
and I agree with you.
Yeah,
I
there's,
agree with you, but I think that whole thing was designed so that the people who own the homes with a backyard next to it want some kind of
privacy, yeah. So,
break from the street.
my only
Pavers
point
won't
about,
make a difference with that,
it won't make a difference, but it could make
as
a
far as your
difference.
visibility.
I mean, I think it could make a difference because it would get people's attention and hopefully they'll slow down.
Okay, but we will agree to disagree on that
Okay,
opinion wise, but.
I suggest that we take Laura's proposal and consider this as an agenda item for next month.
I agree. I have it on the agenda for next month already.
does anything have to be submitted to get that on the agenda?
It's already on the agenda.
Because this one somehow wasn't on the agenda.
That's correct,
For
because we
this
didn't,
month.
we didn't have the
And
bids.
like I explained, we didn't have what we needed to present it on the agenda for this month, so I requested that it be put on the April one. So it is already on the April agenda because we will have everything compiled in a way that we can have a conversation and make some decisions.
Yeah, the
We're
reason,
not prepared to have that this meeting.
the reason I asked, because I called Georgia 2 weeks prior to the meeting and she said it wasn't on the agenda. So she asked a board member to submit a form
It's.
to get it on the
I
agenda.
Guarantee you it is on the April agenda. I added it myself.
Okay, I'm just telling you what
Yeah,
happened.
it's
before.
on, it's on
Are
the
we-
April agenda.
Are we prepared to move forward with adding the number 2 to the monument?
That's gonna be all part of that same discussion, because we just got quotes today. So I would like to present the whole thing at one time. It's 2 separate projects. I understand that,
Okay.
but I'd like to have the
I
discussion.
think it should
about
also be
everything at one
2
time.
separate votes.
It's 2 separate projects, so yes,
For Matarita.
yes.
Yeah,
There's the pavers and then there's adding the numbers, and we'll present it that way.
Yeah.
So it's on the April agenda. I added it myself.
numbers
So
are $300.
I understand, but
Spending.
again, we got quotes today for stuff, so. Unfortunately, government doesn't work as speedy as the regular industry. So we have to have everything published.
All right, let's move on to, items for discussion. Item A. Is that up on the board?
It will be. Just gotta get the right place. Or down. I don't know where that exactly falls.
That's to do with the GIS services regarding traffic signs and lighting.
But, all right, let me blow it up so you can read it. There. To the important part. Okay, so this, who's presenting this? Ponds. Looks like this is ponds. No,
It wouldn't be pods, it would be safety and security.
safety and security, yes.
Yep.
So Randy,
Yes, I'm not sure, did Dean Groves propose this? No, there was discussion to add, see if there could be added to an existing contract. Just to add streetlights and signs.
they can't hear you.
Just leave it up, leave it up.
Yeah,
Okay.
it should be popped
Yeah.
up.
So, safety and security had wanted to inquire about the cost to add streetlights and signs into some of the existing work that was being done.
To add those into the layer that you already have.
Yes,
Okay.
that was the request or the inquiry.
Oh, this is what it would cover.
So I think I missed a meeting where this originally was discussed a couple of months ago.
This is Peggy. I just wanted to state that having worked with Passarella in the past, sometimes when we try to do things manually and then we hand over like spreadsheets or handwritten maps, things like that, the cost is actually more than having them come out and use their tools to very accurately pinpoint and describe what it is that we want to add. So I'm all for letting Passarella do this.
Comments, man?
So what will,
So-
what will we have when Passarella does this?
It's on the screen. They will be layering these items into your current GIS data.
So why don't we have a sign for the maximum gross vehicle weight on the bridges that we have within the community? Is there a limit to the weight of the trucks that go over the bridges? We currently have 3 roads that have bridges that enter our communities. And gross vehicle weight is not a sign that's in the,
Well, this wouldn't be to put, so what this would be is when you look at a map, there would be a pin for what these items are. This is not an actual physical sign. This isn't like signage in the community. GIS is like when you go to Google Maps and you see the restaurants and all those things pop up on there, those pins, it would be to put these particular things into their GIS system.
So wouldn't it be important to have gross vehicle weights pinned? To limit the
I think-
amount of weight a truck can go over on a bridge?
I think that's a separate issue, Marty.
Yeah,
I-
It would be important, but yeah,
Yeah.
not part of this scope.
It's because that's a physical, you're saying a physical sign.
Right.
We're not
Well,
talking,
no, I'm not talking about a physical sign.
no,
I'm talking about a sign like this where it's pinned, where a truck driver would be able to tell that my truck is too heavy to go over that bridge.
This isn't a public map, Marty. This
No.
is a private map for use within the community.
Pelican, Passarella set up, they maintain a very nice resident interface on a website for the residents of Pelican Preserve where you can go and drill down into properties and things that are inside of your community. And it would be to add those things into that particular software. This isn't anything to do with creating signs, recommending signs, putting up actual physical signs. This is just marking things on a map is what this is doing. I understand. Yeah.
So the request to clarify a little bit was simply to add that additional layer that has streetlights on it and add that additional layer that has signs on it, primarily because of our experience with the hurricane.
That
And
would make
we went
things a
out
lot easier.
physically in the neighborhoods and took pictures and looked at serial numbers and locations and so forth, even though those streetlights are Florida Power or West Coast Lighting. We identified those as a safety and security committee so that a database could be created. This is what needs to be fixed or repaired or replaced.
And this would help answer a lot of the questions too. Where is it? Does it belong to the district? Does it belong to PPCA? Does it belong to the HOA? So all of those things would be layered in with this. So if we have questions about, if you notice under where it says streetlights and light poles, it has a maintained by. So it would say, it would show if it was a district light pole or if it is a FPL pole. That would all be in there. So if there's damage or we need to find something or a sign goes missing, it's like, didn't there used to be a sign here? We would know what the sign was, what it used to say, who's responsible for replacing it. That would all be layered in with this GIS.
my suggestion is that we want to have a complete map. And this would help to make it more complete, that we go forward with this and that we ask the Safety and Security Work Group to look at what Marty has brought up. As well as to whether we need signs for the weight of trucks. And we could add that to the GIS later, but we could also, we would obviously physically, I guess, are you suggesting we do physical, have the physical signs there?
I would recommend it.
Mhm.
But then we could create the sign, but the map would then be amended.
Correspond. We
to
could, we
that.
could amend,
So
we could
we're at-
amend the map.
What we're asking is, make a value judgment. Is it worth the amount that they're asking to try to get all of this synchronized map together so that whoever needs it in the community or
As a-
whatever work groups would have access to this?
And it was a
Could
not,
immediately identify.
it's a not to exceed price of $13,000.
Sorry, what was the amount?
$13,000.
Bill Street with a PPCA, just a timing issue here. We know that we've got a lot of damage from a hurricane that has not yet been repaired. In fact, that was a topic of conversation at the President's Council this morning. So if you went ahead and did this survey of the community right now, it'd probably be both incomplete and incorrect. So doesn't it make sense to wait until your vendors have completed the repairs in the community before you proceed with this? Just a question.
Good point.
I think it makes sense.
Joe Schofield.
Chair Schofield, as far as the weight on the bridge, you need to find out, first of all, what the roads are built for. There may be a standard weight for those roads in a community such as ours, and the bridges could have been built for that workload. So there wouldn't be any reason to even put a sign on it. If the weight's 20,000 pounds and the bridge holds 20,000 pounds, and that's a standard, maybe a state standard for a community like ours for our roads, I think you need to do some research before you even get into putting signs around for that. But roads are typically designed for certain weights. And highways, one, community roads, something different. You might not need to do anything.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Nissenhoff. I'm in Prado and I'm also on the Safety and Security Sub-Team. I have a question about the not to exceed number. Is that just to accumulate the data and populate the databases? Or will it also include maintenance? So if we decide to add signs or if things change, would we have to go out and get another bid for that? Or would that be included in what we?
Based on the scope here, it's just to create and convert the data layers into the existing data. It would not be to maintain it. You do pay an annual fee for them to maintain your GIS database, so that would just fall.
That
under
would be,
going
okay,
forward.
so it's included in that.
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments? Board, audience? Let's move on.
Well,
Are you,
so, yeah.
where are we at on this? Are you
Where are
not
we?
going?
I
to
mean,
bid?
my suggestion is if the consensus of the committee is to wait until everything gets repaired, let's wait till everything gets repaired, but just to move on without coming to some kind of a.
Right.
conclusion.
Are you voting? Are you agreeing that you want to do it, but just not at this time? Do you want to table it? I mean, it's up to you.
Laura?
Just kind of dropped it.
Laura,
Yes.
can we approve it with don't start before date?
Absolutely. You can tell them when you want to start if you choose to do that. I mean, you can say that we want to approve it and we can request that it come, you can give the go ahead at a later date and that
Yeah,
will be up to you.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we approve of this contract with a not before date of completion of the repairs. And tell them we will notify them.
How will we know when all the completion of the repairs are done? How?
Laura, will you be notified when that's done? The
We will,
West Coast?
yeah, we're working very close with KW and Jen to keep tabs on all of those repairs. So we'll know when they're finished.
I second Peggy's motion.
How many years will it take for FP&L to be done with their stuff?
Centuries.
I'd reach out to them again about your poles because I know that there was quite a few of them that were damaged. They came in and they just yanked stuff out and there's no way for them even to be hooked back up at this time. And they made me aware that there are many, many poles down in Lee County that they're working on and they're on a list. And that was about all they were willing to commit to. They're aware that they had come and disconnected them to make them safe. They're aware that they need to be reconnected, but they are not at that point yet.
All right, so we have,
I've
Randy?
personally been asked Keith Riddle and others to give me an update on some projects. They've sent me a string of emails where each month they're checking with West Coast.
FPA
Tico
or Tico or
Peter,
Pelican.
and each month it's, will you get it done the end of this month? And it doesn't get done.
Or
There's
next
there-
week. And
Yes, so they
Yep.
imply that it will be.
yeah,
So
it's
I
enough
honestly,
of effort on our part, yeah.
so I think maybe we should just accept Bill's recommendation that this get tabled until we have some understanding, because we don't really have a good idea how long it's gonna be before. Could be talking years. See?
Mr. Geppert in the audience.
Bob Geppert from Monticello, and I completely agree with Bill that we shouldn't be doing this until it's all done. However, let's not add more months to the project. You know you're gonna do it eventually. I think you're gonna wanna do it eventually. So give them the check to do it and then trust your work groups, the subgroups, to let them know, either KW and Laura, when the work has been done to their satisfaction, because these are aids to the subgroups and to the community.
And
So to Phil's point, approve the money. It's not a lot of money, 13 grand. It's a known entity. They pretty much have not a blank check, but the scope of work is very vague in what they do and they update based on what the three subgroup chairmen want in conjunction with staff. So I wouldn't want you to wait another couple months. They can get started on it today and just add these different layers. It's not a big deal.
But how do we know that 13,000 isn't gonna raise by the time they do this?
Well, that you not to exceed. You gotta not do, they've been very reasonable. I mean, I think we've only spent 15,000 a year for all kind of projects.
Yeah, they are very conscientious with their dollars, with the
Yeah.
dollar amounts that we give them for, because we do work with them through the district as well. And they're very good about sticking to budgets and letting us know if they're gonna be getting close, or they're like, hey, we finished everything, we're way under budget, is there something you'd like us to do? So they're very, very conscientious.
And,
with
and
their-
they do a lot of good things for us, Alan. I mean, they printed a couple of maps this past week for KW and for, Adam for their offices because they were out of date. They're pretty flexible people and they've been very fiscally responsible to our needs from day one. So, it's not like somebody that's out there gouging. They didn't initiate this incidentally. We initiated it with the various subcommittees, what these different kinds of things. And, if anybody is not familiar with the website, please go and visit. It's currently on our Pelican Reserve website. You click into it, you get the map, and you can spend hours and hours and hours looking at all the data that's in there. And it's a volume of data that's unbelievable. And we're just trying to make it better.
I think we have a motion and a second already. Can we take a vote?
What was the,
Find
can you
out if
repeat
there's
what the
further
motion is
discussion.
for?
I'm sorry,
Can you please repeat what the motion is?
who made the motion?
Peggy made the motion. I moved that we approve the contract as it's stated, but require them to hold until we give them the go-ahead to begin the process pending the repairs.
Doesn't there need to be a not to exceed though? Not just.
It's already in the
Not to
contract.
exceed, no.
It's here, not to exceed, NTE is not to exceed, time and materials not to exceed $13,000. And so
Okay.
this is valid through the end of September of 2023, which is our fiscal year. So it would need to be completed before the end of September, which is 6.5 months from now, so.
And I think somebody also made a second. Is that?
I second.
Take a vote?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Aye.
All right, I will, she's been emailing me after each PPAC meeting, so I will let her know that you have approved the contract, but we are going to delay the start date just due to the volume of missing signs and poles at this time.
All right, next item for discussion is the use of golf carts on CDD roads, Pelican Preserve.
Not my agenda item. You guys asked to have this brought up, so I'm
Well,
just here.
I would like to suggest, if I may be so bold to do so, that we need to revise resolution 2018-04, which covers golf carts, because there are a number of things that need to be addressed. Now, it could be that maybe, I'm not sure whether it's a resolution for this committee or someplace else, but let me suggest things that are not in that that are not or need to be corrected in that resolution. Just saying that we ought to use rules for state, whatever the state rules and the local rules are for these, for the golf carts. I don't think covers it, because our golf carts are used. There are a number of things covered in the resolution that are not covered by by laws. For example, the travel lane for the golf carts. Right now, the travel lane is, they're supposed to use the curb lane, but may use the traffic lane, the regular car traffic lanes. I would suggest that there are a lot of bicyclists who would like a bicycle lane, and we don't have one. And my suggestion would be that we establish a bicycle lane and ask and have the golf carts ride only in the traffic lanes. That's one possibility. We have never put down the procedures for the colors of the golf carts. It's another issue that we haven't addressed. There is the issue of golf club golf carts going out on public roads, and they don't have the equipment that we require them to have in the in the current resolution. And I think that needs to be resolved as well. So my suggestion is that we have,
So, you say golf cart, golf club, golf
Cart.
carts.
yes, right. The ones that they,
I mean, they are not allowed on the roads.
that's what I said. That's what I said.
That's a big insurance issue.
But they go on the roads. They go on the roads, and there's one place they almost have to go on the roads. Well,
They can cross the road and that's an official golf cart crossing. So if you have your own golf cart and you go on the road, I don't think you have an insurance issue. If you are in a golf club golf cart and go on the road, I think that's a major insurance issue for both the person driving the golf cart, a car, if there was an accident, thank God there hasn't been any, and the golf club.
My,
Yes.
my suggestion here, John, is that we need to look at this resolution. We ought to assign somebody to take this on, look at the resolution, come up with recommendations for changes, because I think it needs to be changed. I have had requests from quite a number of bicyclists who said, you know, at one time we had a bicycle lane. And then we had this battle about where the golf carts should go. And I have,
Yes, we had. There were bicycle.
Can I ask you, please, conversation between here and here without somebody coming up to a microphone because
Yeah.
people online can't hear?
whether there was or wasn't a bicycle lane is irrelevant at this point. But there are people who would think that we should have a bicycle lane. And my suggestion is that we take a look at this resolution and change it to the degree that we need to.
Could you volunteer to look into that?
Can I make a suggestion? Jennifer is here today from the Safety and Security Committee to learn more about this. And on their upcoming meeting, the last Monday of the month, a big part of that agenda is this subject exactly. My suggestion would be that we let that safety and security group discuss things and perhaps come back with some recommendations. You know, and maybe even break this up into pieces. One of the things that I know has been mentioned is that everybody pretty much wants to make sure that cars are registered and insured.
Well, of course,
You know,
that's required in the
and that-
resolution.
You know, that's something that we can talk about. The colors and so forth, we can codify them, but you know, really who cares? But I would suggest the Safety and Security Committee can come up with some good suggestions, perhaps, that we could address that.
I think that's fine.
Next meeting.
Randy, if you'd also ask them, when they're taking a look at this sort of stuff, I've had several different people come to me with concerns about the bicyclists. That they don't stop for stop signs and they just breeze right on through them on all the intersections. So maybe somebody needs to take a look at that as well. And I understand people don't wanna, they're out there for exercise, they wanna keep it going as much as they can. But that is a safety issue.
You know, one of the main things that came up at the president's council meeting this morning was the fact that that there's many things that we want to have accomplished in rules, but we have no mechanism to enforce them. So it becomes a suggestion at best.
Well,
Now, the police giving some tickets can occasionally modify some behavior. I know they traumatized a beautiful young or lady neighbor of mine, giving her a warning for riding through a stop sign. But
and you're right. I mean, who's gonna go out there and enforce it unless you care to do it yourself or something? But I'm just saying, if it's a safety issue, at least it ought to be brought up, it ought to be recognized, it ought to be communicated. And if they choose to ignore that, then they're gonna have to be responsible later on in case something happens.
I would suggest that at least the question of where bicycles and golf carts should go is a safety issue, but it also is a rules issue. And so Randy, I think your suggestion is a good one, have the safety and security group. What I'm saying is, right now, as written, this resolution is not, there are some things that are wrong with it. And they need to be.
Can I ask a question? Did any of you read the memo that's in your in your pack from Tony?
You go through,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, then I'm a little confused as to the conversation we're currently having.
I'm suggesting that we need to have our.
There are four options up on the screen that our corporate counsel is recommending. Those are four options. None of them involve going back to the safety and security work group at this time. So I guess this is what's going to be presented to the Board of Supervisors as well. So I'm curious where this committee stands on these four options.
Yeah, number 4 is basically where I'm coming from. Exactly.
And that would remove us from it. It would put, the resolution will no longer exist and that would remove us from it. Get the district out of the golf cart
Yep.
business.
Yes.
That's fine. If Tony is one of the things that whoever reviews this has to be sure that Tony agrees with what we come up with.
These are Tony's recommendations.
Yes, I understand that. And I'm effectively suggesting number 4.
Excuse me, may I? Bill Sirico for the PPCA. No. Community association has never had the authority or the responsibility to control vehicular traffic on district roads. And these golf carts leave the community and travel into other areas of Gateway on the modal lanes along tree line. This is not a community association issue. I mentioned this at our last meeting here, that I disagree entirely with council's opinion in that regard. I understand him wanting to get out of the business because it's ugly and it's difficult and well, there are some things that we can help in enforcement because that's part of the role we have under the O&M agreement. For instance, we serve as your agent in attempting to get residents to register and insure their golf carts. Can we force them to? Yeah, we have penalty procedures that we could use if we really wanted to get that way. But to establish the rules for vehicular traffic on your roads, that's not our role. You've made it clear this is your asset. You need to own the control of its usage. Unless you want to give us the roads, in which case I'd like to get the bond money too.
I am suggesting that somebody needs to look at that issue as well as the resolution itself. Right now, what we have is not something that is good, that we should be using. We need to reestablish it. And I'm suggesting that be done. And I think the safety and security work group would be a group to do it.
Yeah, and I think option 2 that Tony has suggested gets you there. It says review the resolution and amend it to strictly the issues of golf cart usage and other issues associated with golf carts. And then reissue the resolution and then we'll help you enforce it. But to ask us to make the rules, you may not like what you get from us.
So I'd like to make a motion to table this item, send it back to the Safety and Security Subcommittee.
Go, Schofield. I second Marty's.
Thank you. Bill, we went through this. It took us about a year. You orchestrated it. You were the chairman at that time. We spent a lot of time talking about colors and we basically said any stock colors were allowed. That was the end of it. That was what we all voted for unanimously.
That is correct.
That's
We
correct.
also talked about that all-purpose road and how at one point, somebody took the initiative to put bicycle signs in there and were told to take them out. It didn't meet the law. The CDD has laws specifically for golf carts. We violated those in our meeting by stating in there that golf carts could drive golf carts are supposed to be in the all-purpose lane, but we would look the other way, that's my term, but we would allow them to drive in the vehicle lane. They really aren't allowed to drive in the vehicle lane. The CDD's requirements said that they should only be in the all-purpose lane.
If you look at the
They do
resolution.
say that, and I won't debate that. I might be wrong. Somebody can check it out, but I ask you to check that out. We have pedestrians walking and running in that all-purpose lane. We have bicycles and we have golf carts. Pedestrians are strictly forbidden from being in that lane by state law and by city law. There's a sidewalk there. Where there's a sidewalk, pedestrians are required to stay on it. No person should ever be in that all-purpose lane. And I think you need to work with the attorney. I think you need to review the CDD laws and you need to look at the state laws. I just got a ticket and I've been studying all these laws by requirement to get my points off. And they have specific recommendations on that also. So I think it's a lot more than just throwing it out to somebody to take a peek at. Know what you're getting into. It's going to take time and it's going to take a long effort. But be careful because we went through this and we thought we had written a very good bylaw or section when we did 2018-04 about 3 years ago, and it was a long time putting it together.
Resolution says, currently in effect, says golf carts should be operated and driven in the undesignated 4-foot outside travel lane / shoulder. Should be. Should be.
Please don't have conversation if you're not at the microphone. People
Should
might
be,
can't
and
hear.
I suggest that our attorney said it is should, but they may operate in the regular traffic lanes. All of this says is, Joe, you can say anything you want.
Bill,
What
that
all of
was
this
your
says is
term.
they need to be looked at. This needs to be looked at because it is not accurate.
I agree it should be looked at because golf carts shouldn't really be in the driver lane.
I am
It
just
was your
suggesting-
terms. You crafted that and you gave it to
No,
the
I didn't.
attorney to
Tony
try to
did.
get approval. And you did do that, Phil.
So
Thank you.
one of the problems we have is that lane isn't wide enough for a golf cart.
Yeah,
And
now
you
I know-
have some major safety issues.
If
a
you'll
golf
recall,
cart
I
is
went
there.
around and I put my golf cart in, I took 100 pictures of all over and I proved that that lane is not 5 feet wide. It's
not.
about 3 inches short of that. In most cases, there's very few areas where it actually met it. And I suggested, and the board thought we should maybe move that line over a little bit. We didn't do that either. But a lot of time went into this and a lot of study went into it. And we kind of just did the best we could with what we had. And I think you need to look very carefully before you start making changes, that you're meeting the state requirements, the CDD's requirements, that they stand unless they back out of it. And be very careful where you go on this.
my suggestion is that that we look at all of those issues. That we have the safety and security group look at those issues. I'm not suggesting, maybe they will come back and say, everything's fine exactly as it is. But I would suggest that there are things that are not accurate in the current resolution and that we ought to be looking at it and perhaps changing it. Or perhaps not having a resolution if
There is a
that's what-
motion and a second on the floor.
Can someone please repeat what the motion was? There's been a lot of discussion.
Motion is to table this item and send it back to the safety and security for further resolution.
Any other comments?
And I seconded that.
That's
Right.
correct.
So do we have to vote on the motion or
Yeah,
just?
we have
yeah.
to vote to table it. Yeah.
Well, I do have a question. Laura, you said that, is this going before the Board of Supervisors or no?
This ultimately is the Board of Supervisors' decision, how they want to handle this.
I know, but I
Because
thought
it's
I
in,
heard-
yeah, it is going to go in front of the board, but
Not-
they're asking for input from Pelican because it's in your community.
All right.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Somebody else has comment.
Kathleen Anderson, Bella Circle. So I know it's centered around the golf cart lane, but also going back to the bicycle lane, the law in the state of Florida is even if you have a designated bicycle lane, the bicyclists can ride on sidewalks if there's a sidewalk. They have to yield to the pedestrian, but otherwise they are treated just like a pedestrian. So that law, I believe, is pretty current. Also, bicyclists have to have by Fort Myers city ordinance, lights on, equipped with a front light, from sunset to sunrise. So just thought I'd mention.
We are starting to debate the resolution. I'm suggesting that we don't debate the resolution, that we hand the resolution over, and this is what that we effectively hand the resolution over to the Safety and Security Work Group, rather than getting into the details of what's in the resolution.
Like to move the motion.
A second.
Any other discussion on the
No,
motion?
You,
So if I'm understanding correctly, we're voting to take resolution 2018-404, give it to the Pelican, your safety and security subcommittee, have them review it and come back to this committee with suggestions. Do you have, I would like a deadline for that, please, so it doesn't drag on for months, because this has been going on long enough already. And it's gotta come to you, and then it's gotta go to the board, and so the longer we wait, the longer it's gonna take. Everything is delayed. It's like a snowball. So I would suggest that you provide a deadline or a meeting date that you would like to have the information back from them, their recommendation.
60 days.
So you're looking at about 4 months.
our
before
May
it gets to the
meeting.
Board.
our May
So
meeting,
you want it at your May meeting?
it's unreasonable, Randy?
It's 60 days.
Yeah, that exceeds when most of the people will be heading back north. But
We could get it back earlier. I'm just putting a deadline, like a no later than.
no, let's make, well, yeah,
If you get it back
let's make
earlier,
it
that's
that.
fantastic, but I'd say no later than,
let's see if we can get some priority.
than the May meeting.
But,
Okay,
Yeah, put 60 days.
thank you.
We didn't vote.
I'm just writing down what you guys are talking about.
All right. Can we take a vote?
I agree to send it to the Safety and Security Committee
With the return date of no later than the May PPAC meeting.
with the return date, no matter of the May meeting, PPAC meeting.
I vote aye on that same resolution.
I agree.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion is passed. We can move on. Item C, the adjustable weir project. Somebody had some. Bob, this is almost complete, correct?
Yeah, I think this is just a report by Bob.
Right.
I don't know that there's.
Bob Gepper, Monticello. I don't know why I'm the weird guy, but I guess I was. It's been coming through for a long time, sorry. But
I got it. I got it. I got it.
weird, okay. It was good, I like that. It's moving right on its own pace right now. I mean, it's been a long time coming. Apparently, some people were kind of caught flat-footed in the communications process where they got a lot of information about it, but it kind of went under the radar. The only community that was ever actively involved in this was Viadana. And they certainly knew step by step what was going on, but we could have done a better job of communicating. And I know items went out from the district, items came out from ponds, but nevertheless, we're almost there. We've had meetings with residents. Keith came over from the district and Tetra Tech was there. We met at the pond. We looked at it. Joe Schofield was there. And the bottom line is the residents are going to wait until they see what it looks like when it's done. The commitment that was made to them is that we will do anything within reason to make sure it's not an eyesore. I'm not quite sure what that means yet, whether it be plantings, trees, whatever, but whatever they want in a reasonable nature, and that's exactly what we did with the aeration cabinets. We made sure that the residents were happy when it was over. So unless there's any particular questions, if you go out there, there's a lot of work going on at both locations. And I've talked to everybody but the Tiberio president, because quite honestly, I thought it was out of their line of sight, but I've heard since then that one of their residents is upset, so I will call them based on my past history as ponds chairman. I didn't want to dump this on Doug when it was all done prior to him coming over. So if you guys got any questions, sling away.
There's no questions. We can move on.
It'll be done within 60 days. That's the commitment we have right now.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
And I stressed this in the president's meeting. I'm just going to say it to be redundant. The fact that we built it doesn't give us the right to use it. In other words, we can't just arbitrarily lower the weirs. There's a lot of requirements that need to be met, but at least we have the infrastructure there if we do get permission and we do see an event coming at us. For that.
Item D, boardwalk accessibility update.
All right, the PPAC requested the Board of Supervisors to follow up regarding the ADA use on the boardwalk in Pelican. We reached out, well, Chelsea reached out to, South Florida regarding, clarification on their part for what South Florida considers ADA access. We have had a bunch of email exchanges going back and forth. They asked questions, we asked some questions, answered them. So at this point, let me find. We would like to know, get more clarification from PPAC as far as exactly what the intent of the modification is, what exactly you would like to do on the boardwalk, because South Florida is asking us to be very specific. In order to get the pre-application meeting, we need to be able to tell them exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And at this point, we don't want to speak on your behalf. We have a general understanding what we think you're trying to do with it, but this is your boardwalk. This is your request. So we want to make sure that we take forward what you would like to do with the boardwalk. I can tell you that Keith and Tim Holland and I walked the boardwalk when we went to go look for areas that needed to be repaired. And we took quite a few measurements while we were there, including spaces where the bollards are, widths of the paths, to make sure if there was room for two golf carts to pass each other, if there was enough room for a golf cart and a wheelchair to pass each other. And so we did many different measurements across the boardwalk while we were there. So that's kind of where we're at right now. We're looking for very specific from you guys. What would you like to do? Tetra Tech believes they understand the scope of the study that they need to do for the pre-application meeting. Just understand there's fees involved for Tetra Tech's work to do the study. There's the potential for costs once the impact study is done, that there may be impact fees that will need to be paid because of the impact on the environment. We understand, and South Florida understands, that in the past, golf carts were always allowed to use the boardwalk, but as we discovered, that was not a provision in the permit, and so we're now abiding by it. But if you want to make a change and allow them, there's more costs involved than just for Tetra Tech to come and do the study potentially. So we're asking for your
Laura?
direction. Yes.
Laura, so basically, the, they came back and said they have no ADA statement on use at all. Nobody's ever questioned.
Correct.
Interesting. Okay. So do you need us to detail, we want to be able to allow three-wheeled trikes and mobile scooters up to half horsepower, or, I mean, how detailed do we need to get?
The more detailed you can get, the better, because the impact study will be based on what kind of, besides pedestrian traffic, what would be going across the boardwalk. So if you
Okay.
can see on the screen here, it talks about, like, the environmental report will have to look at all of these things.
One of our alternatives, I would suggest one of our alternatives is to effectively do nothing. Write a set of rules that is consistent with how we are currently handling the boardwalk. Let it go at that and not do a study. We will need a study if we want to change from, we are basically what we're currently doing. That's my understanding anyway.
And when someone comes back and says we are not in compliant with ADA for access,
We are.
how can we be in
100%.
Well, I
compliance?
think,
Have no statement.
Well, ADA requires, I believe it's 36 inches, to, between the bollards for a wheelchair to fit through, and the standard width of a wheelchair is about 26 inches. Every spot that we measured, where there was a bollard, there was a minimum of 36 inches. At some places, it was up to 40 inches where we measured.
Okay,
So there's more than adequate room for a wheelchair to fit between the edge of the boardwalk and a bollard.
that's
and
That's
I,
Do we need to
reassuring.
modify anything? Do we need to modify anything to allow those handicap wheelchairs through?
No, they're allowed to go now. A regular wheelchair is allowed on the boardwalk. There's no restriction.
Not a motorized wheelchair.
That's where the line gets kind of gray. So
Yeah, I think we need, whatever we do, we need to codify them. We don't have a written set of rules now that specifically applies to our boardwalk. So we need to have a set of rules. And the
So are
set-
you looking for a definition as far as what would be considered, well, beyond pedestrian traffic does not include bicycles or skateboards because your feet are not touching the ground. Although you could kind of argue with the skateboard, 1 foot is, but skateboards are not considered pedestrian. So wheelchairs, because they are an accessibility device, are allowed. The motorized wheelchairs, I think we would have to do the same evaluation like we did with that trike for the person that wrote in, and next we went through an entire review and made a decision on that. But we would have to get Tony's assistance here.
So
So we're just looking for direction from you guys for what do you want us to do next?
now Laura, I remember hearing someone say that actually a golf cart could be considered a motorized vehicle for ADA purposes.
There's arguments on both sides of that. It depends on which thing one list, if you look at it, it says it could be considered, and there's another article that I read, another definition where it says it is not. So it's one of those,
Is there any way we could,
Excuse me, Randy, one question. Bob Geppert again. The memo from Tony specifically says a motorized golf cart used for mobility is allowed.
I
It's
don't think
not
it says
definitive.
allowed. I think
It's
it
not
says it
def-
could be considered a mobility
Okay,
device.
but I mean, it leaves it open that it is open
Okay.
to interpretation. It's not a cut and dry.
could we put something like, a handicap sticker is required then? Because that's common.
All kind
for-
of things could be done, but the only thing right now is we need, as Phil said, we need to codify it. It says pedestrian only. It's what it says.
there are
That's what it
all-
says.
There are all these issues that if we codify it, we can
resolve it.
address. We can either say a motorized is okay or it is not. That, that people could, we've just got to say what our rules are. And our rules have to be consistent with ADA.
And everything else.
and
And
the-
then we'll throw it down, and say whatever document we come up with, till we're all happy with it.
That's right, exactly.
And the other proposal that has been under some discussion, whether it has merit or not, is whether we wanted to let partial golf carts into some portion of it. And if we wanted it, and I don't know that we do, and I don't even care. But if we do, we ought to know what it's gonna cost to do that. And that's part of what the board has given, the big board gave direction to staff to set up a meeting with South Florida to discuss that. And that's still an ongoing process. It's not resolved quickly. And I have no idea where that's gonna go. I don't know if we're looking for a $10,000 environmental study or a $2 environmental study. But I mean, all of that should be in front of you to make an informed decision.
I think why was there an environmental study? Why would an environmental study have to be now? When for the last, how many
The
years?
short answer is, we had a meeting a year ago out South Florida that I was a part of. At which time, South Florida said, when we issued the permit, golf carts were excluded. We, WCI at the time, chose to allow golf carts. So we said we ought to grandfather it in. It's been done 20 years. South Florida said, no. If you want to consider doing that, then you have to do a full environmental study of the whole area. And then if the result of that study, however it comes out, then we will, my word, we will fine you and allow you to continue doing that in the future. We will charge you as a community $100,000 a year to allow golf carts. That's
Those are-
how they,
That's the impact fee.
that's
Yeah,
the impact. They
it's
come up with
about
a legal
that
warrants for it, but that's the bottom line. If we wanted to do it, we could certainly do it, but we couldn't afford it. We really would want to do it. And I think everybody's kind of gotten used to it right now. But to answer your question, that's why, because we were told that we had to do this. Now, the full environmental study is extremely costly. We all know that. We're not asking for that. We're asking, would you consider just this 10-foot wide section on either side of the boardwalk for 100 feet? What's that going to cost us? And again, that number should come to P-PAC, and then you guys say, yeah, we want to do it, or no, we don't.
So would it make sense for this committee and the community to consider that a pedestrian only, with the exception of everything that would be compliant with the ADA? So that any handicapped residents and or their guests would be able to use that boardwalk. But somebody who wants to take the golf cart and just go out for a spin in the evening
And that's why we need the
would have to
definition.
park it and
That's
walk.
exactly why we need the definition.
And how could we codify that
Bill Srico for the PPCA. First of all, I want to mention that I don't think the community association has had a complaint on this issue in many months, just as a,
Good start, yeah.
just as a data point, okay? So before you go spending a lot of money. So I'm gonna ask a question. How much would a sign that says pedestrians and ADA compliant mobility devices at each end of the boardwalk cost you? And oh, by the way, the definition of ADA compliant mobility devices is whatever the ADA says, and get out of this business before we get sued. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, it seems to me we've got
I-
we've got two choices. We've got that choice, and that is to have a resolution or rules that effectively codify what Bill and Bill is saying.
It's already codified.
Please come up to the
I'll
microphone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yell at me, Chelsea.
I'm just gonna grab you. I'm gonna grab you and pull you up here. Talk in the mic.
The ADA has already defined as
Yeah.
widely or as narrowly as they're ever going to what an ADA compliant mobility device is. Don't get into that debate. If you try to define it closer than that, you're gonna be stepping on somebody's toes somewhere, okay? I'm telling you, invest the $35 in the two signs, I'll even kick in. How's that?
I'll do it too.
All right.
Yeah, and if we make
a
it,
volunteer for, it's two signs. One's gonna pay and the other's gonna pay.
and we
Put
can
'em
kind
on.
of make, we can kind of make it general, because once again, the manufacturers are going to make 3-wheel carts, and they're going to make 4-wheel carts and different types of mobility devices that we may not anticipate yet, that we've seen with golf cart manufacturers.
Joe Schofield, I had a chance on Saturday to go to a display of equipment for mostly vision impaired folks, but there was an ADA fellow there who I talked to, and he defined pedestrian as anybody not in a car. He also defined that a golf cart can be used as a means of transportation for a handicapped person. He also indicated he'd be happy to come and talk to anybody here. He runs a consulting business, but he also does he does all his business with ADA compliance. So golf carts from his possession, and as Bill has said, are actually legal.
My only feeling is, and we could incorporate all the ADA stuff in here. We need to have a set of rules so people understand what that means. In other words, if I'm on a bicycle, can I ride the bicycle or can I just walk the bicycle? So there are a number of different things that we need. It would be explanatory of the rules of the ADA rules.
Bill Srico of the PPCA, respectfully, Phil. You can't do that because the feds make the rules. If you try to interpret them,
I'm not.
Don't tell anybody-
I'm not suggesting you interpret them. I'm suggesting that we have rules. If there are any rules that apply directly to us, we have them. Otherwise, we say, these are the rules. And
the only
we copy the Fed rules.
the only rule that exists is what's in the permit. The permit says pedestrians and ADA compliant mobility devices only. End of statement.
Yeah.
Put a period on it. If you go further than that, you're in trouble.
Mr. Chair, if I could make just one, I think we ought to be moving on from this, be quite honest with you. And it seems like we create more problems for ourselves than what are really out there. I mean, I don't always agree with Bill, but well, we're on other committees together, so I guess we do occasionally, but I say posting the signs, and we haven't had a whole lot of complaints. And so why are we out there trying to get more complaints? And I say we move on, we post the signs or something similar to that. Do with whatever the government says is ADA approved, and us not try to go out there and change those at all. And so
I
that's my
agree with you
suggestion.
and also Mr. Srico.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with Bill at all. I'm just saying that we ought to tell people what those rules say, what the government rules say. Just have, so
So I
people,
think our direction.
if people have questions about what they can do or can't do, we can say, this is the rule. And the rule would be a government rule. I'm saying we just codify the government rules then. So people
Phil,
know what we're doing.
Can we put the signs up like was suggested. And if comments, we get more comments or problems, then maybe go to that approach. But do we have to do that now? I don't think we do. I think just putting the signs up would be a great idea.
So the direction that we're giving is to put 2 signs up. And also ADA compliant vehicles are allowed on the boardwalk. And no golf carts, leave the bollards in place. That's our direction.
Illegal, ADA compliant
Yeah, see that?
mode of transportation.
Feel free to go for the PPCA again. Yeah. That's, see, right there is where we get into we go over the cliff.
Correct.
If the sign simply says pedestrians and ADA compliant mobility devices only, stop. Because there is going to be somebody, a handicapped person who uses a golf course as an ADA compliant mobility device, golf cart. There's going to be somebody that uses a motorized scooter like Tony opined on a month and a half or so ago. There's going to be this wide range of mobility devices that continually will change. And you can't post the whole ADA statute. I don't think I could lift it anyway. So all I'm suggesting is a sign at each end of the boardwalk, pedestrians and ADA compliant mobility devices only. Stop it there and never come back to this topic again, except maybe if we want to do it as part of the golf cart.
Well, we already had 2 people volunteer to pay for them, so let's do it.
Moving on.
Well, once again, Bob Geppert, we've spent enormous amount of time and energy on this, but I will say one thing, that the permit does not say ADA. The permit only says pedestrian only. Because ADA came up after the fact, but it's still appropriate, but it does say that. Second, I want to make sure that Ponds makes the sign so it's conforming to the type of signs that we put in. That is a round black pole and Pelican preserve green type signs and all that kind of stuff. And lastly, once we take these steps, we are going to have to provide some place for people to park their bicycles and their golf carts. And right now that's a TBD, because a whole other can of worms when you ask South Florida to let us put in parking there. So I don't know how we're going to address that, but just keep it in mind. It's going to cost us some money somewhere, and appropriately so. But just keep that in front of you as we make these things going forward. We'll have to provide a place for our patrons to park their vehicles, whatever that vehicle is.
Okay. Time to move on, Chairman?
Time to move on.
We need a motion to do what we've been talking about. No?
No.
Not if they volunteer to pay for the signs themselves.
Just needed to provide direction, right? That's what was.
So this is what we're requesting right here. Pelican, we're asking PPAC to provide a direction on the intent of your modification, if any, to the boardwalk. And then with that direction, staff can formally request the pre-app meeting if that's what you choose to do, or we will do nothing.
So are you saying we definitely need a motion to accept Bill's proposal of putting 2 signs up?
I don't know if we can just put 2 signs up, so you can ask, I can,
Ask.
I mean, you can make the motion and I will have to make sure that that's something that
Let's
we
just say,
propose.
let's just say that the consensus of the PPAC is to tell the GSCDD board that we want to put the 2 signs up.
And let's do it as a consensus rather than.
Yeah.
And then,
a vote.
and then what about, trying to get an approved letter explaining the rationale for that boardwalk use and put it in our monthly, newsletter?
Been too complicated.
Yeah, I think we
Complicated
should
about
just
it. This is
post
what
the
we're trying
signs.
to do.
Well, why don't we just notice in the PPAC newsletter that all we want, this boardwalk is allowing pedestrian traffic only along with ADA approved devices,
Exactly.
and that is it that's allowed.
American
That's it.
Disability.
Yes, but let people know, and most people that are using an ADA, they know what an ADA is, or they
Yeah.
know what they're using it as an ADA. So the people that don't have an ADA or don't know what it is, they won't use anything else. So if we just put it that way and label that this is what the boardwalk, we are allowing on the boardwalk is foot traffic, pedestrian traffic, and ADA devices only.
Excellent.
And don't get any further, and somebody comes and asks you what's an ADA, say if you don't have to ask, you're not using one, or you don't need one, so
This is so your disabled
Yes.
residents
Yeah.
can enjoy the.
For sure,
boardwalk.
yeah.
So just so I'm clear, the
Like everyone
direction from
else.
P-PAC is requesting 2 signs saying pedestrian and ADA approved devices only.
Like that one better.
That's what I had written down first.
Yes.
Mr. Kemper.
ADA compliant.
With,
mobility
with the
devices.
style of the sign in keeping with the others that we've got.
Oh, yeah, the signs will obviously match your
Others.
Yeah.
theme.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you.
That one without saying.
All right, Bob Gepard again for the last time. Did
You
I
say-
just hear, did I just hear that we don't even want to pursue the golf carts in that first 100 feet or so? If we don't want to pursue it, then
No,
We're gonna
no.
drop it.
If an issue comes up later, we can address it then, but if no issues come
Nobody's
up.
talking.
well, no, it's not an issue, just letters request. I've gotten 3 or 4 letters.
Well,
Yes,
No golf.
no.
No go.
You don't want to explore, but yeah, if that's what you want to do, that's fine with me, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
We're not going to explore that possibility.
Nope.
Okay,
That's fine.
Yeah, they wanted to walk and they didn't want to have to deal with the golf cart.
Make it,
No,
make it simple, stupid.
And it makes it dangerous.
All right, let's move on. Item E. Capital improvement plan.
Sorry, I'm dealing with an emergency.
Okay.
So this is very tiny. Trying to make it a little bigger. Hang on. Just gotta find my spot. All right, so this is not meant to be a template as far as the items that are on it. This is meant to be a discussion starter. And these are things that, if you want to take some time today to discuss them or think about them, these will be items that we will be entertaining when we do our budget discussion and our 1 o'clock meeting at the April, the April
last
meeting.
So can we just table this until the,
This is just put in there to be like a thought starter, and these are by no means exhaustive or limited list. I mean, if there's things that you guys want to do, it could be even items that the subcommittees, you may ask them to work on. It doesn't have to be things that would only come from this committee here. It could be things that you want to entertain from your other subcommittees. So it's things for Pelican Preserve as a whole.
Bill Srico again for PPCA. One of the issues, one of the major empty spots on here that should be filled in is a capital reserve for landscape work. I noticed that as we were going through the template, Laura, so maybe.
Well, I said this is just,
I realized it wasn't exhaustive.
it's not really even meant to be
I'm
filled out.
getting,
Yeah.
I'm getting my oar in the water for
Yeah.
that money
No,
now.
I understood. I already have that on my list to add as a line item for next year's budget.
We get the items that are in the reserve study added.
It is,
before our-
it is,
before our next
it's
workshop.
attached right here, so.
Right, so if you go to,
Well, that's what I'm gonna ask you guys to bring next month when we have the discussion and we'll,
well, reserve study specifically states when we should do the inspections. The reserve study specifically states when and how often we should do inspections and such. And we should just add that to the list for our next workshop.
well, those would be, operations expenses, those wouldn't be capital, so that would be part of your operations and maintenance budget. These would be larger expenses, like if you want to do work on monuments, or if you want to undertake some, like if you got to do roads or some sidewalk projects or things like that, the capital is more to, for those big projects.
My understanding from the Board of Supervisors meeting was, however, that the reserve advisors report did not cover Pelican
It's in
Preserve.
there.
Only a
It's-
portion, only a portion of it.
Yeah,
right?
but
Yeah.
it's, but it is,
Not everything, all right.
District assets.
which is what we're responsible for.
So the district owns the roads. Do they also own the bridges?
I don't believe we own, let me not, I'm not,
The
I'm
roads
not
own
sure.
The bridges.
I have to check that. There's some really weird conveyances in that stuff, or just Tony's been combing through it, so I don't want to speak incorrectly. I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know I
so-
looked at it, but I don't remember.
Okay, so I'll need to know by the workshop whether or not the CDD owns the bridges. I know we own the roads.
Okay, I'll have an answer.
Or
I-
just need maintenance.
I'd like to ask, I guess I'm asking Peggy, whether it was your intent that at our workshop in April, that we have both capital items and other projects that we should be discussing, that we should,
I would think it would be sensible to bring up both. I mean, we're gonna have to be limited in time, so.
Yeah.
The more that we could get the subcommittees to prep ahead of time, and then we can just go mingle at that point.
Laura, would it be permissible for members of this committee to submit to everybody their suggestions?
Not to everybody. It has to come to me. You cannot communicate with each other outside of this meeting. So if you have suggestions, you can send them to me and I'll compile them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Yep.
Send them to Georgia.
No, send them to me.
Send them to you.
Yes.
Okay.
Because Georgia will just have to send them to me. So just send them to me.
So here we have our
I'm
reserve,
responsible for all things financial.
here we have our reserve study, which specifically states preventative maintenance notes annually, inspect for settlement, large cracks, trip hazards, blah, blah, blah.
Correct.
Somebody needs to do that.
Right, but that would be,
Get-
that would not be part of your capital improvement plan. That will be part of your operation
Operation.
and maintenance plan. You're like,
Well, we just discussed that we want to see both on our plan.
That's right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So
So you
can we
could
get that?
it would
item
be a
added?
separate document. Yes.
Submit that to Laura.
Just submit your list to me and I'll get it added.
Okay,
Email
Bob
me,
Gephardt
please.
again. This study that you're looking at, the reserve study, was for all of Gateway and including district assets in Pelican. It has a lot of things lacking. Do not look at this as a comprehensive document we can lock on. For instance, the boardwalk in Conservation Area 6 was not in there, but the pier that the community association owns in the town center was in there. So we're questioning some of the data and the veracity of this report. So it's a working document. Secondly, the board's workshop is an open meeting. It's open to the public. Anybody can come and sit in and see what goes on and make comments. May make them written through Laura later on, but you could certainly participate in that meeting and we'd encourage it.
So Bob brought up a good point. So there are bridges that are associated with the boardwalk. You can go around the preserve.
Those are
on- Those are Pelicans,
those are this committee,
this committee's.
conservation.
So there are 3 bridges that are associated with
Four.
it. 4 that we'll need to address. All right, that's all I have. Bridges.
Any other
Laura-
comments?
Well, just Laura, do we have any update from Tony on how the O&M parsing out is going?
I'm not sure what you mean by O&M parsing out.
Well, trying to decide who owns what piece of asset and all the easements and,
We got a preliminary landscaping, well, a map, the Pelican map, it's at about 85%.
okay.
I know on the list of projects or tasks that I kind of preliminarily put down, that one of the things, Peggy, was to get that done. Really,
We all want that.
Closer than it's ever been.
All right, can we move on to item 8, subcommittee updates, safety and security?
Okay, there are, quickly to go through some of the projects and the status of the Board of Transportation Engineering has submitted a speed hump design drawing and memorandum for consideration of the work group and other stakeholders regarding the current rumble strips on Veneto and Vincenza. They have also talked with the city about what might be required for permitting. It's in the works. And this committee will be given some further information as it develops. But that's one of the things that's being worked on. Florida Transportation is also in the process of converting the design concepts that were
presented here for the roundabout at Cypress Grove Drive and Prado Drive. And that is a work in progress right now, so that those documents will be converted to the type of documents the Gateway District can use to solicit bids for the construction. So that's in the works right now. Some proposals have been collected by the Safety and Security Work Group for refreshing paintings within Pelican Preserve. And this is simply because the markings on the roads have faded because of the ultraviolet lights, and I think you can all notice that on your drive home today. These are pretty expensive projects in the range of $40,000. Could be done in different segments, if you will, but once again, it's still under consideration and will be brought to this committee to consider for some kind of a priority in terms of being on a project list. Now, last meeting I brought up a request from the Prado HOA about a pilot project to help mitigate for ponding on some of the sidewalks that they have in that area. We showed some different overheads of the views, and essentially what their suggestion is to take out a piece of turf that's close to that aligns with the gutters in the street and replace it with pavers to see if they get better drainage in that area. The HOA is willing to pay for the bricks, and the Mariscape has agreed to do the work at no charge. So there's no cost to get to the district, and the district staff has basically talked about this among themselves and approved it. But I went, the HOA, Dave Hamilton in particular, would like to have us discuss or vote on this. And if it's approved, to to make sure that it's in the minutes today so that it can be started. And primarily before we get into the rainy season, but.
You want to make a motion to that effect?
Yes, I move that we give our approval for a pilot project to mitigate ponding on some of the sidewalks in the Prado division, the neighborhood.
At no cost to the, at no cost.
At no cost to the Gateway District.
I'll second that motion. We have a vote. Any other discussion? Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Motion is passed.
One other quick item, the Safety and Security Group had received an application from Daniel Clemens to join that group. Have discussed and approved that, and is now asking us to give approval to add Daniel Clemens to the Safety and Security Work Group.
We need PPAC approval for that?
No, we,
Subcommittee.
No, you can just
No?
approve them.
Okay.
Well, you need to, you
we need to,
you need to approve
we
them. The
need to
board
approve
does
them.
not. Yeah,
The
the board.
board doesn't.
Yeah,
but-
PPAC needs to approve it because it's a subcommittee of your committee. The board does not need to approve the person.
So the subcommittee just has to approve.
No, you need to
No,
approve
we-
it. PPAC
we-
needs to approve
All
it
right.
because they're a subcommittee of PPAC. So like the next level up needs to approve it always. Like the board approves you, you approve the subcommittees.
We have a motion and a second. Take a vote.
Aye.
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 Motion is passed.
That's what I have. Randy, just real quickly, I apologize, but I didn't quite get exactly what they're doing with those rumble strips again. Would you please, just real quickly? Florida Transportation Engineering was asked to come up with some design options to replace those
rumble strips.
To replace them or get rid of them?
Well, come up with some alternatives. It's well known that nobody likes the rumble strips.
Yeah.
Yeah, be that as it may, we can't do anything about it until we come up with some alternative. So some different ideas were come up and they had a design that was basically a hump. So a slight increase, with 6 foot and then a decrease that is meant to be a calming device in terms of the speed, because this was all predicated on trying to get people to slow down on that southbound and or northbound route of Veneto to and from the town center.
One of
So
the-
we're
one
coming
of-
up, there's a lot of stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
We also have to get permission from the city for permitting. And frankly, we gotta correct a situation that's
Okay.
been kind of a long-standing
Yeah.
issue.
And one of the options wasn't taking a grinder, going out there and grinding those suckers off.
I'm in with that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, once again, this is gonna require the cooperation of that neighborhood of P-PAC and in the district, and also the community association, because if you recall, community association has the rights to that road. They could probably do whatever they want with the rumble strips on southbound of Veneto.
Yeah.
We, on the other hand, have got to follow all the rules in terms of the ones that are.
Can I ask
just
you to please
prior
keep
to
the
it.
conversation in the audience down?
Thank you.
It's very disrupting to those of us trying to listen. Sorry, Randy.
That's all I have.
Any other comments?
PPCA again. Can I ask the safety and, safety and security work group to look at it, an issue? While you're working on the roundabout at Cypress Grove and Prado, there are 2 street light poles that are probably 15 feet apart, very incongruous in terms of the separation of lighting, the other areas. And the one that's furthest to the right has been hit and destroyed several times, had to be replaced. If that were moved to the opposite side of that entrance road there, it would probably be safer and do better lighting for that circle. While you're working there, it might be worth looking at that. I just ask you to give
So
that some
the
attention.
question is primarily, would we consider moving a street light?
Relocating that one street pole, or 2 that are right next to each other.
Okay.
It's weird. I don't
One
know
of-
why they would install that.
Right, before you leave, the area where the rumble strips are PPCA's responsibility.
That's a different issue. I'm
He's talking
talking
about the
about the
roundabout.
Cypress.
No, I'm talking about your report though, not. what
Okay,
his.
yeah.
All right.
N-
Could you
Only
guys
one
look
side,
at-
only one side is off.
Could you look at and removing them? If
It-
that's your responsibility and the consensus is that they be removed.
If it were up to me, I would have been out there with a shovel, probably
I-
6
I
months
like
ago,
to-
but
I
I'm
like
only
you-
one member on the board.
Well, can you bring it up with your board?
I certainly will. I'd be happy to.
Please do. Thank
Okay.
you.
I
But,
think,
that Bill, to expand on what you're talking about, one of the main design recommendations was to make the right lane a right turn only lane so that we avoid 2 cars
Right.
trying to get around the corner when there isn't enough road to do that.
I think
Two
the
of
problem,
them
I think the
fit.
problem is the placement of one of that light posts
And I think that may have
is
been-
in the skid area, even for
May
a
have
single
been,
car.
But
You
yes,
don't
that-
put light lamp posts in the skid area.
So we can certainly take a look at this and talk about it. It would not be without considerable expense to.
Just ask you to consider.
To
Thank
do.
you.
Randy, it was a
Oh, please.
Judge Schofield, it was a suggestion about 2 years ago to remove that one lamp post and put it over there at the intersection of Cypress Grove and Pelican Preserve Boulevard, and at least save the cost of buying a new lamp post, because you're talking about putting a lamp post on that intersection up there anyhow. I don't know how those 2 got next to each other, but it was poor planning. But you got inventory standing there, and it's been hit, as Bill said, several times. Maybe putting it on the other side of that intersection is good, but you might want to just consider putting that where that intersection is a tree line in Colonial, or tree line in Cypress Grove.
You mean Cypress Grove and
I'm
Pelican
sorry.
Preserve?
Yeah, I'll get my streets right. Cypress
Okay.
Grove and Pelican Preserve Boulevard.
This
And
is
it was-
another project that's been ongoing for a long
Yeah,
time, and
and-
everybody keeps pointing their fingers about who can't complete that project, and now it's the boring company that's holding up, that new light that was approved 8 months ago.
Well, the comment was just made a while
Right.
ago that maybe that extra
Yeah.
lamp post there could be utilized at that section and save some money.
All right, can we
Jen-
move on? You fine?
Jennifer wants
Oh.
comment.
Jen Lewis, KW. So that proposal for that light post has already been approved. And as Randy said, we're just waiting for the boring. So it's already been ordered. It's sitting at West Coast Electric waiting to be installed. But
Yeah.
we do have a light pole down at Palazzo in front of their pool. So I don't know, that might be something we can look at relocating somewhere else with a pole that's down.
All right, ponds update.
Okay, it's short and sweet this month. As we talked about before, the aeration power reduction project is basically completed. We have now moved on to replacing the diffuser types so that we can make sure that the correct amount of air is moving throughout the pond. And that's probably going to take another couple months to finish, but we will continue to monitor how we're doing on that. The pond health seems to be holding very well, and we're just continuing to gather data on that. I won't go into the weir because that really isn't a ponds thing. It was a CDD thing. We are moving forward with the erosion study on the new Pelican ponds. We have coordinated with our volunteer group to make observations, and then after that, we will be submitting that back through and asking, we'll probably be coming back to this group to ask to have Tetra Tech do a short contract with us to look at the findings and prioritize them for us. So that's coming up probably yet this year type of activity.
I have a few more things to add to that. The budget, if you look at
State your name, so.
Doug Zanter.
Oh, hi, Doug.
I'm the head of the ponds subcommittee. The first thing, the budget, I don't know, Laura, in the future, if you're going to do that, but we billed 28% of our budget for the year through the end of February. That's the beginning of March. We have another 42%.
Speak into the mic so that the minutes can.
We have another 42% of our budget that we have contracts that have been signed. We just haven't billed them yet, which means we have 30% of our budget that is not assigned right now, and that's where we're at. Most these purchased but not billed contracts are yearly contracts, so we're in good shape from a budget standpoint right now. Aeration reduction, we're always talking about how slow things operate. In January, we got approval for CDD to do the project. And in the middle of February, the project was completed. And now we're monitoring to make sure we achieve the power reduction that we were anticipating. So when you think about it, in less than a month, we completed that project. We've already started, actually, Jim Latham had COVID, one of our board members, so he went out and started the observations of the ponds with a couple volunteers, and he's got quite a few of the new Pelican Preserve ponds completed, so that's where that is. Okay.
You can do your.
Yeah. Okay, I'm asking for approval for, or I guess for a recommendation to go forward to CDD, the pond interconnect pipes within the pond group, with all the ponds are interconnected. Those pipes have never been inspected and are cleaned or inspected, and we're
We
looking at.
need a clarification on that. Some of the pipes were done back in 2011, when I guess there was some flooding issues in you guys call Old Pelican. So there was extensive video done back in 2011 in those areas. So it's not that none of it's been done, just Not all of it's been done.
The majority of it has not been
At
done.
least not that we've been able to find.
Yes, so and you have just done in Gateway that for your ponds to interconnect a
We're
pipe.
working a basin at a time.
Right.
Yep.
So we have a contract from Extreme Drive Divers for $60,000. That's $59,550 over 2 years. It'll be about $30,000 a year to inspect those interconnect pipes and then come back with recommendations from that. I would like to take this it's on the agenda now, can be taken off, but it's on the agenda for Thursday of next week at the CTD meeting for approval because of the dollar amount. So I'd like approval from this group to be able to take that to the CDD board for approval.
Doug, what kind of a study do you get back? Do you have like a video?
Yeah,
With-
they actually go into the pipes with a submergible unit. You see on TV at times where they're going
Okay.
through and that the pipes are that big and they go through them with that type of apparatus. And some are a little smaller, but they're all videoed.
Okay. And does it give any further benefit to us other than to just kind of confirm that they're in working
Well,
condition?
if they're not,
Do they?
if you find one that's plugged, then what'll happen is it'll cause that pond to flood because the water won't level. So when we have a
Okay.
lot of rain, the water levels and exits in the weirs, they exit into the flowway and the water leaves. If one of those ponds is blocked, that water can't exit and it'll just build up and not exit to Pelican Preserve.
Okay, so it's basically a maintenance issue?
It's a maintenance issue well, she said in 2011, that's before my lifetime in the group.
I'm not even as old as you, so come on.
But I would say we've really not inspected them. I mean, we inspected them when we had some of the pipes, wasn't Bob, he's gone. Some of the pipes weren't even completed
Right.
when the inspection was originally done. And there, I don't know if they had a car in there, but there was big pieces of concrete and stuff.
We'll
in there.
find like where builders, when they're building, they put wood to block to keep the debris out and then they just don't take it out when they're done. So we'll go in and
Oh,
we find like big chunks of concrete or boulders or parts have collapsed.
And another important thing is this project is in our current funding budget. It's not like I'm asking for additional incremental money to do that. It's in our current budget.
WCI did some of that in the have that same contract.
Yeah.
Do it in Eastern Korea.
We are starting to know Pelican for this year. I didn't want to spend all the money in 1 year, just $59,000. We'll probably spend half of it this year and half of it next year. It'll be a multi-year contract.
If that money is already in the current budget, then why are we
You
involved in
can
it?
ask her.
Sorry.
Oh, well, no, before it didn't used to be that way. I didn't have to go through, if I already had the approved budget and it was in the budget, I didn't have to go to CDD for approval, but that process has
The
changed.
Board of Supervisors is enforcing the $30,000 spending limit that I have, and Chelsea has the same limit as well. Even though there may be $200,000 allocated to that line to do projects, they want to have the final say on anything over $30,000, even if it's in that line. So that's why, and this is over my spending.
But you're splitting this
limit.
between 2 years.
Yeah, but they use I had a 4-year contract. They counted all 4 years and it went to the board. So it's not worth fighting. It's just
fine.
follow the procedure
Let's
and
get it.
and
It'll
get
go
it done.
next week, so it.
All right, can somebody make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve going to the CDD for an extra, to spend $30,000
This year.
pond money this
Right.
year for your project to
Right, interconnect. Pipe.
interconnect pipe.
Okay,
I'll second that motion. Vote.
Aye.
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 okay, thank you.
Any other member items?
We have a member item. As some of you may be aware, the Stony Brook community used to have the same setup with this board as we have, where they had They were a committee, an advisory committee to the board concerning Stony Brook. I would like to suggest that we have somebody or arrange to have the board contact the PPCA, the Pelican Preserve Community Association Board, to talk about the possibility of doing the same thing with PPAC. That we then are no longer directly connected to the Pelican Preserve, to the GSCDD board, but that we come under the PPAC. I think some of you are probably aware of PPCA board, yeah. So I think some of you are aware of this. I think what it's gonna take is some discussion, negotiation with the PPCA to see how we work this out. But to move toward having all of the control of the PPAC and its subcommittees under the PPCA auspices.
So just so I'm clear with that, then that means that the CA will then come under sunshine laws if they're giving recommendations to the
No,
CDD.
No, as a matter of fact, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. That we would no longer, that the PPAC would no longer be covered by the governmental sunshine laws because it would no longer be a governmental entity.
But who would be making the recommendations then to the CDD Board of Supervisors?
It was still, as necessary, they would be advising the Board of Supervisors, would not be officially part of the that governmental entity.
Boy, that just doesn't sound right.
I think there's a lot of discussion that has to be looked at here.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure that we're not just passing the sunshine law torch over to the PPCA and then folding everybody else underneath. It doesn't really get us anything.
One of the things Peggy would be to explore exactly how this would work so that we don't get ourselves into that kind of a problem. But at this point, it looks like we might be able to do it in such a way as to give us actually some more leeway as far as the sunshine laws are concerned.
I mean, there's a lot to consider regarding minutes and everything else.
Oh, yeah. I
I
mean,
mean, it's not an easy thing to do, Phil.
I'm not suggesting that it is, John. I'm suggesting that we at least start to look at it and start to discuss it with the PPCA board. You have somebody on this committee start to explore whether this is a viable thing to do. I would, yeah, I would have Mr. Go,
Bill Srico, the PPCA, we've generally discussed this amongst the board members of the community association, basically when we saw what Stony Brook had done and why they had done it. And we've been in some contact with them and the president of their association. They're obviously, the devil's in the details, right? How it would all work, but fundamentally, I don't think much would change. Frankly, this committee would continue to exist. It would continue to exist with all its working groups, but it would continue as a subcommittee of the community association. The community association would continue its responsibilities under the O&M. I believe in the Stony Brook model, what's happening there is that the community association becomes the interlocutor, if you will, between the district and the committee. But other than that, nothing really changes. And I don't think it should. I mean, you've got the ability to reach down into the community to tap a depth of talent. And you've got people that have been doing things for decades. Street and safety, ponds, with experience you wouldn't want to replace, frankly. So it's an organizational change, certainly. you'd no longer be a governmental entity, that's for sure. So it would require the cooperation of counsel from the district, counsel from the association, you folks, the community association board, and it would have to be cooperative and collaborative if we ever did it.
What are the disadvantages of being a governmental agency?
The sunshine law, you can't talk to each other. I mean, as a committee, under the board, you can talk to each other as much as you want, whenever you want. And come to, conclusions and recommendations, freely. You don't have to have, meetings like this in order to communicate. I know, there were a couple of, working group meetings, that did not take place in the last month because you couldn't, garner an on-site quorum. That wouldn't be an impediment, obviously, if you were a committee of the board. You'd make your own rules in terms of what was a quorum and when you could meet, who you could meet with, and how you could discuss things. There are some benefits. There's some downsides too, frankly. You don't have the stature and the direct contact with the district board of supervisors that you have now. There'd be someone between you and them, and that would be the community association board. And that's why it does take some, I think, some thought and a lot of preparation if you're going to do this at all.
So it definitely sounds, from my perspective, like we need to get a lot more information. We need to make sure that there are the benefits that we think we could gain from it, as well as identify any other negatives.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Peggy. It's not as,
Are you saying our committee would then report to PPCA?
yes.
Does it have to be that way, or could we be a totally separate committee? Why do we have to report to PPCA?
Because that's the only legal stature you could have. If you wanted to get away from the direct connection to the district and the legal entity problems that brings with it, the sunshine laws, you'd have to be connected to something else to have any kind of stature, and you'd have to be connected to the board because the board would empower you. We'd protect you with insurance coverage, all those other things that comes along with being one of our committees.
You said the PPCA has already kind of generally discussed this. What is their general feeling overall?
Philosophically, anything that gets us closer collaboratively and consultatively, we're in favor of. We're not in favor of additional bureaucracy and delay. And that's what we've been talking about, for the last year in terms of whether the working groups can really do the things you want to do with the restrictions that are on you. And if we can do away with some of that, that's for the good of the community.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
that's our only impetus here.
So the committee itself is generally in favor of,
I think the
change?
board of directors, the current board of directors
Yeah,
is
I see.
generally in favor. We're in the midst of an election. We're gonna
yeah.
have at least 2, perhaps 3 new members.
Yeah.
They'd have to be polled again and this whole issue brought up again, but
Okay,
I'm fairly comfortable in saying that the current board can see some benefits from doing this.
I attended the Board of Supervisors, meeting and talked with some of the people from the HOA of that particular neighborhood. It's 178 homes, so we're 10 times larger than they are.
That's correct.
They were, compelled to dissolve their advisory group, their advisory committee, to avoid the sunshine laws and the sunshine rules. Now, for years, this committee has been tasked with managing the assets of Gateway within Pelican Preserve and was considered an added value to the community. If the sentiment has changed and we are now no longer considered that way and are more a hindrance to the governance of Pelican Preserve, then the idea that what we should be talking about is dissolving this group, because there's no reason for us to exist. We simply would turn over the work groups to the direction of the community association. And all the decisions made regarding budgets, regarding tasks that will happen and so forth, is now responsibility of the community association. The sunshine laws, for those of you who weren't here before, were weaponized, in my opinion, earlier in 2022. So this is where we're at right now. This discussion about is either dissolve this group or go forward. But then we need to be talking about how did we help our committees, subcommittees transition to a different reporting structure? And how do we help move along some of those projects that have been in the works for a while and we get them commuted? So if this group needs more discussion, I think that's what we need to do, because just a majority of this group could vote to dissolve the committee, as it was done by Stony Brook. And we now need to know who is in favor of doing that, because we know that in some respects, we don't have the full support of the Board of Supervisors representatives to continue this group.
Well, I think we're really, really taking a big leap off of the pier here. I would say we need to do some analysis first to see, as you stated, you know, if we've lost the support of the Board of Supervisors, or we are not adding value. You're absolutely right. We should not exist. But do we need? I would not feel comfortable just doing a knee-jerk reaction to this. I would want to get a lot more information on legality and just generalizing how our purpose can be met within the PPCA without a detriment to the community.
Yeah, my initial suggestion was that we start to explore this to see whether it makes sense. What are the positives? What are the negatives? And would it make sense? Remembering that this committee exists because we don't own our community. The PPCA doesn't own a lot of the assets that we use. But on the other hand, they are there for the benefits of the PPCA. And it seems to me that the closer we're able to coordinate workings of the PPCA and this committee and its subcommittees, the better off we're going to be to get that kind of coordination and cooperation. And this would give us a method of doing it. I think saying just connecting the three subcommittees doesn't quite do it, Randy, because there are things that are done by at the PPAC level. There are things that are done, including the implementation of the O&M agreement. And so I think we need the PPAC heading up, if you would, or having the three subcommittees.
Well, this all started over an intramural scrimmage regarding the landscape committee and control of the funds, and so forth. So I don't understand how, what do we do now? We just say, take direction? Don't make them.
No, as I would envision it, we would still have a PPAC, which would do the budget for all of those committees, and submit that budget.
Yep, and we're now 1 quarter into this year's fiscal budget, and no O&M agreement has been accomplished. So we're at the same spot we were a year ago, except now we're vulnerable to the district deciding to increase our fees when we have very little say about it. And a number of other issues that I'm frankly concerned about, but
Randy, Bill Sirico again. There is an O and M agreement. No.
Well, haven't we seen it? We don't know whether we go to, with the gem for a PO or we go to the district for a PO.
Okay, so that's part of the issue that leads us to this question of organizational structure. A strict reading of the O and M agreement gives the community association the responsibility for all contracts, vendor selection, PO placement, invoice payment, for those areas that are the community association's responsibility as defined in the O and M, and that would include landscaping, and that would include street and safety. It would not include ponds, because that always remained a district responsibility in the agreement. Part of the issue we talk about all the time, and part of the intramural scrimmage that you've mentioned before, is that we keep this disagreement going over, you know, where the boundaries, lines of authority should be. I think part of the problem that's arisen lately with the Sunshine Law is that Tony had to make it clear, district council had to make it clear that this body and its working groups are only advisory. They don't manage the district's assets within Pelican Preserve. They advise the district on what to do with those assets. And in fact, some of the governmental authority of the district is delegated to the community association under the O and M agreement to manage district assets. Those kinds of guardrails, lanes of operation, street markings, right, are part of the reason where we've had this scrimmage over the last few months. Because over time, in the absence of a community association that was elected by the residents, this committee took over responsibility to do things because there was a vacuum that needed to be filled, and you did it. You did it very well. That sort of changed. I think the question you're asking, Randy, is really a good one. Has time brought us to a position where there needs to be a different organizational structure to satisfy the needs of the community? And that's, I think that's a valid question. I don't pretend to have a lock on the answer to that question, but it's certainly one that ought to be in.
Are you basically saying that what we're doing now isn't working?
There are some questions in our mind where there are difficulties in getting things accomplished. Mark, for instance, has had terrible, I'll give you a very simple example. Frank Robers, the president of the Community Association, reached out to Mark, to Chelsea, to Laura about a week ago and said, hey, we're facing this big problem with the virus that might kill all our lawns. Can we use the resources of the landscape working group? Because they're the experts, they can help us all get on the same page. The answer coming back from the district was no, because there are liability issues of having the working group be involved in decision-making for assets that aren't the district's, right? If you weren't between us and the district, tasking Mark and the folks who are on the landscape working group to help the whole community approach a common problem would have been easy. But now we run into this bureaucrat.
That's not true.
I can show you the emails from Chelsea. I have them on my phone.
Do you want to see the emails from Mark?
I know what Mark would like to do. That's
What?
a whole story. Mark would like to help. Mark would like to
I'm
help.
going to reserve a little comment here. I mean, reserve some comments. I'm not going
okay.
to say anything. I think you may be overstepping and overstating some of these things.
I'm pretty sure in this particular example, I'm correct. In this particular example, Frank reached out and was rebuffed, and now we're trying to find a way around that.
You almost, I mean, I know we're just in a discussion here. You may lose Mark if this is done in a way.
I would hope that anybody who has dedicated the time and effort, like many people, including Mark, have to the benefit of the community, would stay and continue to dedicate themselves to the betterment of the community.
Mark
choose not
does
to
more
because
for this community
I'm not arguing, John. I'm
on
not
an
gonna argue that.
individual basis, and we're in just a discussion
I
here
agree. Mark is.
than anybody else. There's a lot that has to be looked into here.
I'm
And
not,
a lot that has to be discussed with Mark.
I'm not questioning that.
I mean, he has
You were asked a
great
question. I'm trying to
credentials.
give you a
Probably
response.
better credentials than anybody here.
Can I make a suggestion? This is starting to get a little heated.
No, no, no,
The
not on my
topic,
part.
well, the topic has been breached. I just make a suggestion that we add it to the agenda for April, get everybody time to think about it. It'll give us some opportunity to have some conversations, bring back some recommendations, look at what would be involved to make this happen. Should you choose to entertain it, the pros, the cons, those kind of things. And I think then we can have, I thank you for bringing it up. This is kind of derailing, and I don't think we're at a point right now with the information we have to have a discussion of this depth. And I want to make sure this is a huge decision. So I am not weighing in either way, but I want to make sure that that you have information you need and we have a chance to talk with PPCA as well. And just, we can lay everything out for you so you can make an informed decision.
So
And I can also state that the Stony Brook thing did not happen overnight. I started those discussions with them in January of last year. And they came to the agreement, I believe it was in September or October. So it was not a fast process. It was a long process. We had to make sure we worked everything out, understood exactly how everything was gonna work, exactly what the agreement was gonna be. So it's not like if you guys say, yeah, we wanna do this, it's gonna happen next month. So if you decide to do this, it's gonna take some time.
So Laura, who did you say is going to bring up the pros and cons?
Staff can look into that. We can use the lessons learned from Stony Brook, and we'll work with Tony as well from a legal perspective, what things would change, how your responsibilities would change, those types of things.
Is there a way that we could meet with the community association and particularly those who are new members?
You can meet
To
with them
discuss.
individually, not more than one of you can be there at a time because of the sunshine laws. So
So
you could, if you want, yeah, I think so.
Laura, could we co-opt part of the time that we're gonna do for our workshop and have a more candid discussion with the PPCA members at
You
that time?
can, but we have to get the budget done. So and
Just the
unless you
bud-
guys are gonna decide to do something different, but if we're gonna have funds under the 002 fund, I have to get that done.
Okay.
We need to have it approved in June, so we're getting close.
Yep.
Absolutely. We could just try to keep your agenda light next month and focus on a few things.
Yeah, let's
But
try to.
I'll get with Chelsea and we'll compile a list of all of the things that we worked through when we did the Stony Brook conversion. As far as like the steps we took, how long things took, what things changed, like things they decided to do, how that impacted their responsibilities, how it impacted things within the community, how it impacted how they got things done. And I can bring that back for you guys next month. So you'll have it a week ahead of time so you can read it before the meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. And in light of that, although you're talking about dissolving, we do need to have you designate someone as the liaison for the landscape subcommittee, since Mark is no longer on PPAC and he is the landscape person now, so somebody, you can do it.
I'll do it.
Anybody object to Sharon taking it?
No. Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
Unless
Thank
somebody
you,
else
Karen.
would like to
Thank
do
you.
it.
My leg is sore. It took me a while to get up here. You will be able to lead in this group from a budgetary standpoint. I mean, the money doesn't commingle, correct? I mean, the district money and the PPCA budgets, I mean, those are two separate
Correct,
budgets.
even with
that-
Stony Brook it is, yeah.
Okay,
It's-
so
well,
it's not
basically-
that commingle
No,
the funds.
basically what happened is those of you who were part of PPAC last year, when we did the budgeting process, we had a big pool of money that was with Castle. And we moved those funds over underneath the district's budget and, well, they were still under the district's budget, but we broke them out like the landscape budget. We broke that out of the O&M reimbursement fund and we broke out more of the safety and security things and we broke out some more of the pond pieces and moved them out of the reimbursement account. So what happened at Stony Brook is they already had that broken out structure. We took whatever was left that we didn't have outstanding purchase orders for, added that all up and put it into their replenishment account. So they are paying all of their own bills for everything except for their security contract because that's with the district and any open purchase orders that we had. So anything after January 1st of this year, they are taken care of, but they have a $5,000 threshold. So anything over $5,000 needs to get approved by the district for work on our assets. So that's, we kind of like reversed how we broke all of your stuff out this year. We would put it all back together and then Jen and her group would take care of paying the bills. Yeah.
Yeah,
It doesn't make my job any easier. I still have to go through reimbursement requests. So yeah, I have the same level of work. But
Or-
I'll work with Chelsea to put together a comprehensive analysis of kind of what we walked through with Stony Brook, which will give you a high level idea of kind of what you can expect should you entertain this.
Great. I do have two quick questions in the 5 minutes we got here for Laura, if that's okay. And you might not have the numbers with you, but approximately where are we at with the unassigned reserves?
I got the financials this morning. Let me look. I have not had a chance to review these. If you want to ask your other question when I look, this is like awkward silence.
The other question.
Hmm?
She wants to know the other question.
All right, the other question is, well, it might take her a little longer here. Just for my own information and so I don't get crossways the next time here on submission of the topics for the agenda.
Thank you. I wanted to go over that. If
Yes.
you don't mind, I'll do that right now.
Yes, I want to know what
Okay.
the process procedure is, who reviews them
Yeah.
and all that sort of
Okay,
stuff.
so we've been having this chat with all of the subcommittees. I did this at the landscape committee, the subcommittee meeting this morning as well. You will need to get one, but anybody who's on this committee should have received from Georgia. So if she's still listening, if you could make sure that all of the members of PPAC have this form. There is an agenda item request form that needs to get filled out to have an item put on the agenda. Please be very thorough when you fill it out. These are things that are accessible to the public. So while we all understand what acronyms are and where we're at with projects, anybody on the street picks it up, they're gonna have any idea what you're talking about. So the more information you can give on the item, the better. These agendas are all public record. So the more thorough you can be, the less questions there are likely to come up around something. Your meeting is on the second Thursday of the month. We need the items no later than noon Wednesday, the week before your meeting. That gives Georgia and I and Chelsea, if she needs to, or Tony, if it's a legal thing, a chance to review what you've submitted, ask our questions, get everything compiled, and get the agenda published on Thursday, which is the week before the meeting, which is what is required by statute. So noon Wednesday, the week before the meeting. Anything that comes after that, if you're gonna either have to walk it on or it's gonna have to wait.
So you review it first when it comes in?
It goes to Georgia. She puts it on the agenda and then
Okay.
it comes to me for approval.
All right, so it comes for you and so you could make changes or
I
whatever?
usually end up tweaking the words, the verbiage on some of the agenda items, but I don't normally make substantial changes to anything that's.
All right, and it goes to Chelsea then after
Nope,
that?
it's Georgia and then me. That's it. So, and then if it's legal, it goes to Tony. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep, I try to keep it short and sweet to get it through so it doesn't get delayed. To be
Well, you only
published.
have a day to do it.
No,
That's-
that's a week and a day.
No, I get a half a day. That's
Yeah.
why I want them by noon the Wednesday
Oh,
before. So the sooner you can get them in, the better. But no later than Wednesday, noon Wednesday, the week
Okay.
before the meeting, because that gives me basically a day to look them over.
So I don't believe
I'll make sure Georgia gets it to you.
Well, I guess one of the reasons why is because I'm the one that submitted it for Matarita. And, Jack has been to this meeting. This is his third month. Now he's gonna have to come back for the fourth one, I guess. And so I was hoping to get it on the agenda so we could talk about it today, but apparently you felt that there wasn't enough,
We didn't have enough quotes, no.
yeah, all right.
So there
So
wasn't enough information.
we always love to see Jack, but I'm sure that he doesn't want to come here all this time, so.
I think the twos are a done deal. It's more the pavers that's gonna be an issue. So.
30 seconds.
Jack Pierce, Matarita too. I have a question regarding the proposals or quotes. We have two now. I know that Jen is trying to get more, but not having much luck, so
If we-
another month later, if we only have
If,
two.
if we end up not getting two, as long as we can show that we've tried to ask for more and have not gotten responses, that is acceptable.
Okay. Thank you.
Got 5 more seconds.
No? Any other member items? Any other comments? Anything from the field?
I would suggest that people on the committee on this, the issue that we're talking about, of breaking away, that if you have a chance to discuss that issue with non-fellow members of PPAC, board members, others who might be interested in it, just get an idea of what their feeling is about, people who might understand it. I think probably board people to talk.
I could see if maybe the former SBAC would be interested or in chiming in as well, because I mean, they did what you're talking about doing, and they can say how it affected them.
Yep.
All right. Like to get a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion. We adjourn.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.